Vice President of Foreign Policy for the Heritage Foundation, James Carafano, joins me now. James, none of this should come as a complete shock to anyone. But how do we as a nation deal with China's lack of transparency and their obfuscation going forward in all aspects, not just when it comes to this virus?
Yeah, well, first of all, the one indisputable truth is that China did not share information from the start, and they didn't stop international travel. And just to remind folks, the difference that could have made, we could have got a month's quicker start on a vaccine, which means by now millions of people could have been vaccinated. We could have had testing, better testing from the start. That means we could have done trace, and we could have stopped mass outbreaks. So it's indisputable that China lied from the start. And I think this has major implications when you think about geopolitics. The notion that China is an honest partner is just laughable. And the notion that somehow it's just the last administration's fault that the Trump administration's fault that there's a problem and that this can all be fixed by just engaging with them in a smart way. I mean, that is a very, very dangerous idea.
Let's look at some of the questionable orders from the Chinese officials. Do not use incurable, fatal, or similar headlines to avoid societal panic. Do not use pop-up notifications for any negative news reports about the prevention and control of the novel coronavirus epidemic. James, do the Chinese people have any idea that they are being misled, or are the controls there so great that they would have no access to the fact that they are being misled?
It's, we don't have an enormous amount of visibility in China because it is a relatively closed society. But it's very unlikely that the Chinese people themselves know the full extent of the complicity of their own government.
Interesting.
And this gets to a really important issue. One of the things that the Trump administration did right is something called reciprocity, which is we should treat the Chinese like they treat us. We can't travel freely in their country. People can't go freely investigate stuff. Embassy officials can't go talk to people. And yet for years, we let the Chinese come here and do whatever they wanted to. The Trump administration put a stop to that. It would be a huge mistake to not follow that policy. Just letting the Chinese run wild again and without, it would just send all the wrong signals. Now is not the time, in a sense, to tell the Chinese, let's go back to the good old days, because the good old days were really bad for us.
Well, to that end, there are a lot of questions as to how Democrats, the Biden administration, Nancy Pelosi, will handle China going forward. And then there's this. Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy says Eric Swalwell should be off the Intel Committee following an FBI briefing on contact with that Chinese spy. Here's McCarthy in his own words.
There is no way Eric Swalwell should continue to serve on the Intel Committee. I'm going to request that every single member on the House Intelligence Committee gets the exact same briefing from the FBI that I did. Because if this individual is sitting on this committee, Eric Swalwell, they've got to know the background of what has gone on.
So to your answer to the other question, what do you make of Nancy Pelosi's continued refusal to kick Swalwell off and put one of the other 230 Democrats on?
Well, for starters, the leaders' attitude towards this so far, and the Biden team's attitude so far is incredibly disappointing. So folks understand the Intel Committee is not just like any other committee. They get access to all the most sensitive intelligence in the U.S. government. You have a special level of responsibility and integrity being on that committee. This doesn't appear like they take that seriously. And remember, this is also a member of the committee who is highly partisan, who went after the president for suffering,
right.
Also had foreign intelligence come after him. So his performance has been abhorrent. And their response so far, and McCarthy, I don't think is being partisan here. He's doing this after he's had access to a classified briefing.
And there are over 200 individuals who probably want to fill Swalwell's spot in the Democrat Party. Kind of should be in there at this point. James, we always appreciate your insight on these matters of foreign policy and foreign intrigue. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching the Heritage Foundation's YouTube channel. With more than 500,000 members, we are the nation's largest conservative research and education institution. We believe the principles and ideas of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing. Please help us further our mission by subscribing to this channel and sharing our videos with your family and friends.